Hello friends, welcome to UGC EPG Pathshala. Myself Dr. Taruna Bansal, Assistant Professor at the Department of Geography, Jamia Millia Islamia. Today I will be speaking on evolution of geographical thinking in Germany. This is part of paper Geographical Thought. Germany's contribution to the development of geography has been immense. In the 18th and 19th century and even prior to it, the Germans made great progress and kept this subject on a sound philosophical and scientific basis. The contributions of the Germans can be divided into three phases: pre-classical period, the classical Humboldt-Ritterian period and the post-classical period. Now here I would like to just add that I'm not going to discuss that Germans had contributed to human geography, physical geography. No, I will not concentrate on the branches to which Germans have contributed. Rather, I have classified the contributions of Germans into three different phases and how in each phase they have contributed to the geographical thinking, rather to the philosophy of geographical thinking, which has made geography a scientific discipline as it is today. So, in each of these three phases, the German scholars have laid the foundation for the establishment of geography as a modern science. They offered valuable concepts, models and paradigms which are even relevant in the present times. In this module, we would be discussing these three phases within the German school to analyze their importance and role in the scientific development of the subject. We start with the first phase, which is called the pre-classical period. After the initiation of the scientific revolution, specialization within the subject got prominence. The influence of this revolution brought by the works of Kepler, Copernicus, Galileo and Newton was so immense that German geographers started defining the discipline as a branch of mixed mathematics. Scholars working on description of regions were vehemently criticized. Different traditions evolved which laid the foundations of scientific geography. In the pre-classical period, Peter Appian, Munster and Cloveris produced the Compendia for geography. These scholars revived the classical Ptolemaic tradition as well as the Roman tradition of Strabo. Appian was an astronomer and cartographer renowned for his two major works. The first one is an astronomical treatise and the second one deals with the concepts of geometry and astronomy. He accepted notion of geocentric universe and also recognized Aristotle's view of ecumene. Ecumene here is known as the habitable part of the Earth. In 1530, he produced a heart-shaped world map where both latitudes and longitudes have been shown by curved lines. The map is given in the e-text which is there. Munster is renowned for his work of Cosmographia Universalis, which was published in 1544. This work has been regarded as one of the authoritarian works on world geography for many decades. He too recognized the geocentric approach of the universe. Cloveris was the first geographer to talk about universal geography. He flourished the tradition of Munster and published a book, Introduction in Universum Geographium in 1616, which dealt with the historical geography of Germany. Apart from these, various German scholars produced numerous works which one way or other helped in building blocks for the geographical thinking. The names of Mercator and Waldseemüller are worth mentioning. Both of them credited to produce world maps which are being recognized even in today. Steins. Waldseemüller's map was published in 1507 and was labeled Carta Marina. The most important part of this map is that for the first time America was recognized as a separate continent. In 1538, Mercator made a world map which became the only map to be used for navigation in the low and middle latitudes. Despite the scientific discoveries and new concepts, their contributions faded by the 17th century. The German scholar who influenced the geographical scholarship for more than a century was Varenius. He was one of the first scholars to highlight on the difference in the nature and content of physical and human geography. He believed that the methods of the natural sciences could be successfully used to draw conclusions about natural phenomena with precision to a considerable extent, but they cannot be applied to human groups because they are more subject to probability than certainty. Generalizations with respect to human groups must be restricted to a particular time and space. His contributions eventually gave rise to the dualisms and dichotomies between physical and and human geography, and more importantly between regional and systematic geography, though he asserted that they were mutually interdependent branches of geography. Varenius was the first to describe the differences in the amount of insolation received at different latitudes of the earth, and pointed out that the highest temperatures on the earth are recorded in the hot deserts and tropical areas and not in the equatorial belt. He was also the first to explain the world's wind systems, which stated that the air masses close to the equator get heated up and thins out to be replaced by cold and heavy air masses from the polar regions. His first book, which is Regional Description of Japan and Siam, was published in 1645. It has 5 parts: a description of Japan, a description of Siam, that is Thailand, which was being translated into Latin, a description of the religions of Japan, some information on the religions of Africa, and a short essay on the governments dealing with places and people. Varenius' most significant contribution was his book Geographia Generalis, which was published in 1650 and was one of the first attempts to combine 3 branches of geography, that is general, which is systematic, mathematical and physical, and chorology. Here chorology means science of space. This 3 book consisted of 3 parts. First, the absolute or terrestrial part dealing with the shape and size of the earth, as well as that of physical geography of continents, areas, and the atmosphere. The relative or the cosmic part describing the relation between the earth and the other celestial bodies, especially the sun and its effects on global climate. The comparative part focusing on the principles of navigation and the location of different places in relation to each other. In the prologue of his book Geographia Generalis, Varenius advocated the description of particular places and stated that these should be considered in consideration with the celestial conditions like climate, terrestrial conditions which include relief, soil, vegetation and biotic life, and human conditions, that is population, settlement, trade and forms of government. Therefore, geography as a discipline should focus on the surface of the earth in combination with these conditions. It is often regarded that Varenius's Geographia Generalis could have a second volume, but due to his untimely death in 1650, it could not be completed. Another scholar who influenced the geographical scholarship in this pre-classical period was Immanuel Kant. His early works like General Natural History and the Theory of the Heavens did not have much to do with geography and was much more related to speculative astronomy. It was the same even with his treatise on earthquakes that dealt with the interior of the earth. However, geographical references may be found in his later works such as Critique of Pure Reason, which was published in 1781, and Critique of Judgment, which was published in 1798. His essay Anthropology from Pragmatic Point of View also contained a vivid geographical description of the races and ethnic groups around the world. In his famous work Critique of Pure Reason, Kant freed geography from its close bond with theology, thereby rejecting the teleological concept. This put an end to the Aristotelian era in geography. He insisted that explanations for any phenomena should be sought in chronologically antecedent events. Kant believed that the geography of any place played a pivotal role in determining the progress of human civilization. The physical geography which Kant developed was essentially anthropocentric in nature and content. This is because, according to Kant, physical geography not only included the features visible on the Earth's surface created by natural processes, but also by human actions. This viewpoint Kant seems to have conceived and borrowed from Buffon's Historia Naturally, and later this point of view was adopted by Ritter. Kant opined that physical geography is the first part of knowledge of the world and is essential to develop a basic understanding of the earth as the abode or home of man, and for further philosophical studies. Empirical knowledge, according to Kant, could be obtained in 2 ways, either through pure reason or through the senses. Senses again can be divided into inner and outer senses, while the outer senses can be perceived in the form of nature. While anthropology, used by him as analogous to the modern term of psychology, deals with soul or man, physical geography deals with nature. He advocated that knowledge can be classified in 2 ways: logical classification, that is, which deals with the which is the basis of morphological similarities and may give rise to systematic sciences like zoology, geology, etc. Physical classification that categorizes items as belonging to the same time or space. In relation to this, he asserted that history differs only differs from geography only in that while the former is related to time, the latter is related to space. History studies phenomena that follows one another and has reference to time, that is chronological, whereas geography studies phenomena spread beside each other and on space, that is chronological. Since any individual's experience is restricted to a specific time and space, his knowledge has to be supplemented with the experience of others. Such knowledge derived directly from others may be divided into two types, narrative or descriptive. While history is narrative, geography is descriptive. Thus, history and geography make up the entire gamut of empirical knowledge, the former that of time and the latter that of space. To be more precise, empirical knowledge may be classified according to space and time. According to Kant, the concept of space in his critique of pure reason is not something objective or real, neither it is any substance, but it is something which is subjective and essentially a mental construct. It is governed by an unchanging law and provides a kind of framework for coordinating things and events, all of which can be perceived with outer senses. Immanuel Kant can be rightly regarded as the father of exceptionalism, as he was opposed to generalizations and believed that history and geography were methodologically different from the other sciences, and they were concerned with the study of the unique and the exceptional. Germany in the 19th century witnessed the emergence of what may be described as neo-Kantian. Followers of this tradition sought to draw a line of difference between the historical and cultural sciences on one hand and the natural sciences on the other. This is supposed to have sowed the seed for another dualism within the discipline of geography. They uphold that whereas natural sciences deal with the objects that can be sensed externally and thus be explained, the cultural and historical sciences deal with those objects that are mainly mental constructs and therefore needs to be understood. Hence, while the former is concerned with the nomothetic approach, the latter is concerned with ideography. The dichotomy between the two approaches may be explicit as ideographic approach do not seek to develop laws, but mainly focuses on the description of particular places in the context of land, while the nomothetic or the deductive approach seeks to establish laws relevant to a location and make deductions based on those laws. Apart from physical geography, Kant may also be credited for pioneering several other branches of geography like mathematical geography, moral geography, political geography, commercial geography, theological geography, to name a few. Now, when we talk of Kant, we see that somewhere, he is laying the roots of possibilistic approach and the humanistic approach, which later became part of geography. It can be said that the possibilistic and the humanistic geographical approaches which developed in France and in other parts of the world have some roots in Kantian's geography. Now we come to the second period, which is regarded as the classical Humboldt-Ritterian period. The discovery of each new law of nature leads to the development of some more general laws. This can be aptly said for Humboldt and Ritter, who in the late 19th century established most of the theoretical concepts of geography and thus have been rightly called as the founding fathers of modern geography. Based on the available information, both of these scholars came up with large number of syntheses. The geography demonstrated by them has been defined as classical geography by Hartshorne in 1976. This is because they dominated the foundation period of the discipline through their uniform and simple methods, leading to the end of the classical, the pre-classical period. So now we come to Humboldt. Humboldt led the way in the expansion of geography outside Germany. He traveled for about 40,000 miles with modern equipment, and the people traveled to the Andes south to traversing, explore, reached Lima, Peru, etc., which were very famous places. In addition, he also recorded Peru's current cold water and said that there was as you know, there was this feature which we call today as El Nino. So, a Peru current, which is also called Humboldt current, has been identified by Humboldt, who says that in spite of being a cold current, there is an upswelling of warm water in that current. So, this was also given by Humboldt. The adventurous nature of Humboldt made him travel to Vesuvius volcano. After completion, he wrote his experiences and comments in 30 volumes in the French language, which were later translated into many foreign languages. It encouraged many young geographers to examine the geography of the unemployed areas of the world. In his writings, Humboldt explained the reason for the prosperity of Mexicans residents to better use of land resources. The idea of digging a canal across isthmus was also put forward by him, based on his American expeditions. In 1829, Humboldt was invited by the Russian Tsar of the city of Petersburg and was tasked with finding the virgin land of Siberia across the Ural Mountains. During his Siberian campaign, he recorded the he kept a regular record of the temperature and pressure, and then he came to know what we know as permafrost, which is that the frozen characteristics of Siberian soil. Also, the term climatology first time appeared in geographical literature. It was related to all variations of atmosphere like temperature, humidity, barometric pressure, winds, atmospheric purity and degree of visibility. In 1845, the great work of Humboldt was published, which was accepted all over the world and translated into many languages, known as Cosmos. Cosmos is a comprehensive account of Humboldt's journey and expeditions. The first volume was published in 1845 and the fifth volume in 1862 posthumously. In the first volume, a general picture of the whole universe is presented, while the second volume gives a portrayal of nature through the ages since the time of ancient Egyptians, based on the paintings of landscape painters and even poets. The third volume discusses the laws of celestial space. Man has been discussed in the fourth volume. He believed all the races of man had a common origin, that no race was inferior or superior to other. With respect to the subject of geography, Humboldt pronounced the word cosmography and divided it into Eurography and geography. In his opinion, Eurography is descriptive astronomy, which is related to celestial bodies, while geography was limited to geographical geography, which is related to the terrestrial part. According to him, geography is the description of the earth, that is, Erdbeschreibung, which is related to the interconnection of events in one area altogether. Humboldt believed in the inductive method and emphasized the importance of the experimental method of research. He studied comparative studies of various geographical areas, especially steppes and deserts, then emphasized the importance of geographical representation of data on the usefulness of mapping and usefulness of maps for geographical studies. He believed in the unity of nature and accepted the idea of underlying causalities. He believed that there was a common origin among all the people of human race and no race was superior or low for other people. Apart from this, he emphasized the need for a careful measurement of nature's observations and observations in the field. This theory was an approach towards creation and modeling. In a nutshell, Humboldt asked for a great variety of specific questions. For example, he attempted to develop a general picture of the distribution of average temperature in the world in relation to distribution of oceans and continents. He also tried to to measure the height of the tropical areas, and one of the contemporary, apart from this, what we see is that as a founding father, Humboldt, have contributed to large number of fields in geography, be it physical geography when he talks of Vesuvius mountains, when he talks of Mexican plateau, be it climatology and oceanography when he is talking of permafrost conditions, he is talking of climatology, he is talking of the Peruvian current, and apart from that he also contributed to human geography through his monumental work Cosmos, which is in 5 volumes and discusses different parts or different components of the earth as a whole. And he simply describes that geography should be said in German, I quote, Erdbeschreibung, that is the study of earth as the abode of man. Apart from Humboldt, the other scholar which laid the foundation of scientific geography or modern geography is Carl Ritter. He is also, as I already mentioned, he is also known as the founding fathers of modern geographical ideas. He was influenced more on the development and growth of of geography than Humboldt. His initial work in geography included 2 volumes on Europe written between 1804 and 1807. In 1810, he wrote a complete systematic geography of the world entitled Handbook of Physical Geography, but it was never published. In this work, Ritter expressed his interest towards inductive method. For Ritter, geography was an empirical and descriptive science. He declared geography as the earth science, which is related to local conditions and embraces the properties of the place in relation to the temporal, formal and physical characteristics. The first feature was topographical, and it was related to the natural division of the earth's surface. The second included water distribution, sea and atmosphere, while the third conditions were described as a geographical aspect of natural history. Thus, according to Ritter, geography is the branch of science that brings together all its features, events and relations with the world as an independent entity and reflects the relationship of man and man with this unified whole. He claimed that the central theory of geography is the relationship of all events and the nature to mankind. He makes rhetoric of geography, claiming that earth goes beyond the real purpose in the form of science. That is, the earth is described as the home of man. It is in Erdkunde, published in 1870, that he provides the above explanation about geography, making his geography anthropocentric. In the words of Tetham, Ritter's man-oriented geography clearly states that the earth and its inhabitants stand in the closest reciprocal relation, and one cannot truly present it in all its relationship without the other. History and geography must remain always inseparable. Land affects the inhabitants and inhabitants has our land. The principle of unity of diversity was the fundamental principle developed by Ritter. According to him, there is a fundamental unity in the biological and uninterrupted constituents of the habitat, in which man gives sculpture to its sculptures his cultural environment. In this approach, all the physical and cultural components of the environment are kept in mind, and their interconnection is understood to understand the geography of an interstate unit. It is a regional view that unity in diversity means that every naturally bound area in unity in relation to climate, production, culture, population and history. He was a teleologist. His geography seems to be an attempt to interpret philosophically, but that which science could not explain. He even sought to construct a law of the arrangement of parts of each continent to the whole. In short, Ritter gave a systematic frame to geography which remained valid for future scholars for a number of centuries. With the death of Humboldt and Ritter in 1859, the classical period of geography came to an end. So now we come to the third and the last phase of German geography, which is called the post-classical period. The post-classical period was very different from the earlier 2 periods. This was because here it was felt by the professional geographers that an accepted paradigm is required to study geography. And since other disciplines during this time were under the influence of materialistic scientific philosophy and were dealing with the natural laws and causality, professionalism became an academic necessity. And in geography we see that there was nothing called an accepted paradigm. As a result, all the emerging professors which were working in different universities of Germany came up with their own definitions, came up with their own concepts, and as a result what happened was that geography got an academic status, and it became not only a permanent but also an independent discipline in Germany. The emergence of this geography is credited to the works of Pascal, Richthofen, Ratzel, Pankhand, Hettner, to name a few. Their contribution led to Germany becoming one of the leading nations for the development of academic geography. Pascal was the first professor of geography in Germany. He gave Germany a new He gave geography a new outlook, orientation and dimension that was conflicting to the Humboldt-Ritterian tradition. To him, geography was an empirical, systematic science. His book on the history of geography was published in 1865. He even recognized dualism in geography and excluded man from his study. His morphological research has caused an academic stir in physical geography in that time of Germany, but his unfortunate death at the age of 49 left his work incomplete, which was a great loss to the emerging new geography in Germany. His incomplete works flourished under the leadership of von Richthofen, who carried forward the scientific spirit which was instilled by Pascal. In his geography, in his opinion, the purpose of geography is to focus on the various events occurring in the different phases of the earth. The method he suggested for the study of geography was that the physical setting of the first area should be studied, and then the adjustment of humans should be examined in that setting. According to him, the main objective of geography is to search for human relations and physical earth and biological features. To him, geography is the science of the earth's surface and the things, the phenomena that are causally interrelated with it. Richthofen was the first German scholar who had differentiated between general and regional geography. He stressed that the regional geography should be descriptive to highlight the key features of the area. Apart from this, to prepare his hypothesis and try to achieve regularity of patterns and patterns of unique characteristics, it should describe the observed characteristics. General geography is related to the spatial distribution of the personal events in the world. For systematic regional studies, he emphasized the need for regional work. For regional studies, he uses the term chorology and differentiated it from chorography. Now, we come to the next geographer, which is Ratzel, and he dominated the view of German geography in the later half of the 19th century, and it is said that the Ratzelian views of political geography dominated so much in the 20th century that somewhere it led to the outbreak of Second World War. Now, Ratzel, being contemporary of Darwin, was highly influenced by Darwin's theory of species, especially the themes of struggle and natural selection and association and organization. It was Ratzel who compared the mode of life of different tribes and nations and thus made a systematic study of human geography. He coined the term anthropogeography and described it as the principal area of geographic studies. A scholar with versatile academic interest, he was a hardcore German, and it is said, as I already said, that he joined the Prussian army and dedicated himself to the way Germans were living outside Germany. His monumental work Anthropogeography was published in 1882. Though his work had initiated the idea that natural and cultural phenomena can be studied in the systematic study, can be studied in a way of a systematic manner, he discusses the significance of the historical development and cultural background of the population in the second volume. In the words of Dickinson, in his first volume he discusses the cause of human settlements, while in the second he stressed on the facts of distribution. In 1896 he wrote Political Geography, where he compares state to an organism. He states that a state, like any simple creature, should either grow or die. So that means it cannot stand any time. That means we cannot have a state which will exist throughout history, and we have examples where empires have been demolished or they have ceased to exist. So according to Ratzel, state is just like an organism, and that as an organism takes birth and lives its life and has to die. Similar is the case with state. He is often regarded as the father of political geography. It can be said that through his works, the main focus of Ratzel was to change geography from an inventory to an exploratory science. Much of the present German geography is inhabited to the works of another great German scholar whose name is Alfred Hettner, and he is being credited for his methodological innovations within the discipline. After his extensive travels, he wrote book Europe, which was published in 1907. Its second volume came in 1924, and these two books later became foundations of regional geography. To him, geography is a chorological science, or is the study of the areas. He explained the importance of distributing the event and explained the importance of the regional geography. In his opinion, the specific subject of geography was the knowledge of the areas of the the earth because they are different from each other. Humans are an integral part of the nature of an area. He dismissed that view which said that geography might be either normal or regional. For him it can be both, and he was also against environmental determinism. He appeared to be a significant contributor to the doctrine of possibilism, and he rejected and he even rejected the idea that geography has to be either ideographic or nomothetic and cannot be both. And you know, his this ideas of organizing the methodological issues of geography have influenced the German, not only the German geographers, but also geographers in different parts of the earth in you know, for even at the present times. Some of the other scholars who are worth mentioning are Penck. We all know that Penck gave, you know, he gave the concept of geomorphology. And basically Penck gives an alternative to Davis's cycle of erosion. So, you know, he contributed to the modern physical geography. Now, this clearly states that the German geographers were not, you know, confined to human geography. As I said earlier also, if you see the detailed works of be it Humboldt, be it Penck, be it Ratzel, be it you know, Ritter, these all scholars contributed to all the branches of geography. Apart from this, we see scholars like Passarge, Koppen, Philipson, Christoller, Jelen, Hochhofer have made valuable contributions to different branches of geography, and these geographers have made so much contribution that geography as in geography the concepts of chorology, chorography, landscape morphology, unity in diversity, they all made this foundation of modern scientific geography very, very strong. So much strong that even today we regard these these contributions as classics, and you know, it can be said that nobody all over the world can ignore these contributions when one has to study different aspects, different concepts or different paradigms within the geographical academia. Thank you.